Well, hello, school counselors and school counselors to be. Thank you guys so much for coming to my channel, The Inspiring School Counselor. And today we're going to be getting into the what would you do if interview questions that you can possibly be asked during your school counselor interview. So I'm excited to be doing this with you guys, and I'll also be going into detail in how I would approach these questions, and hopefully it's able to help you guys. If you have not watched my 63 questions that you can possibly be asked during your school counselor interview video, then you need to go and click on that link down in the description below, and I also put it at the end of this video so that you guys can click on that when this is finished. So I don't want to prolong the time anymore. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a video. All right, let's get into it. So the first one is, what would you do if one of your students tells you she's pregnant? So when approaching this question, I want to make sure that I let them know that I want to be, for one, aware of the school district's guidelines and protocols, as well as the school's guidelines and how to handle students that find out that they are pregnant. And so that will be the first step, is just for me to just be aware of that, and then I would proceed in talking to that student. And in talking to that student, I would want to let that student know that, that I'm here for them and that they're not going to be judged, but I want to help them in any way possible. And I also would want to just be clear on certain things in regarding to the situation through talking to that student. And so I would want to find out if the sex was consensual. I also would want to find out the age of both parties, especially with the student coming to me, because I want to know whether they are a minor or not. Because if they are a minor, there are certain things that I'm going to have to do, and one of those things is the parent is going to have to know. And so I would want to encourage that student to tell that parent, and letting them know that I will be there with them to help facilitate that, and so that they will know that they're not alone. I also would want to know even the relationship that that student has with that parent, because if it's not a good relationship, then that might be why the student is apprehensive. And so once again, I will ensure them that I will be with them during that process when they are telling that parent. The next thing that I would want to do is find out the age of the other party, because if that other individual is older, if that student is a minor that's coming to me and the one that they had sex with is older than them, then there are definitely going to be steps that I'm going to have to take. I also would want to know is what are the steps that they took to know that they are pregnant. Did they go to the doctors, or did they take at-home pregnancy tests? I will also want to provide resources for that student, the different clinics that they can go to, and the help that they can get so that they can ensure their health and their safety, as well as the baby's health and safety. And then I will also want to know if they know how far along that they are. So there's a lot of things that I would have to do in order to help that student, and also understanding where that student's head is mentally, because maybe they want to keep the baby, or maybe they want an abortion. And so depending on that conversation and how it goes, and finding out all that information, then I would help walk them through the steps, and also I would give that parent, the steps that's necessary as well. Now, if that student is not a minor and they're 18 years old or older, then those are different things that we would discuss and talk about. But I really want to just highlight the point of, you want to make sure that you are looking at your school district's guidelines as well as your school guidelines. It should be the same as your school district, but depending on if you're in a private school setting or not, but you want to look at those guidelines and how to handle that situation. The next one is, what would you do if you suspect one of your students is being abused? So if it is that I am suspecting that one of my students is being abused, one of the things I'm going to want to do is, for one, call that student into my office, and I'm going to want to talk to that student. I'm going to want to just get a feel if there's anything happening at home, or if there's anybody around them that could be abusing them. I really would use this opportunity not to skate around the issue, but I would just be honest with them and just saying, hey, is somebody hurting you? Hopefully with me being direct with them, they are able to be clear with me. But of course you will have cases where they might not be as clear. So I would also want to look at, their body language when it is that I am talking to them. Now, another step that I will also take is, letting DCS know. So I would file that DCS report, because I know for the checklist that we use is that if it is that we do suspect that there is an abuse going on, we have to go ahead and file that DCS report. And so I would then further take those steps in doing that. I also did a video on that as well, and so I'll put that down in the description below so that you guys can go and watch that at the end of this video. All right, so the next one is, what would you do if one of your students talks to you about wanting to kill himself or herself? So once again, I would want to highlight that I am going to be aware of my school's policies and guidelines in regards to dealing with students that have suicidal ideation or wanting to commit suicide. And in knowing those guidelines, I would then, for one, not let that student out of my sight. I would also reach out to mobile crisis. I would let my administrator know. I would also get the parents or the guardians involved so that they can be aware of what's going on and they can be a part of that process in making sure that they are safe, the student is safe. And so those are the steps that I would take. And then I will also let the student know that they are not by themselves and that we are all going to work together to help them through this time in their life. And so I think this is a very important opportunity for you to just ensure that student that you're not there to judge them, but you're there to help protect them and letting them know that you are fighting for them because their life is worth living for. And if you have not watched the video that I posted a couple months ago, I began to just talk about the different guidelines that I follow when it is that I'm dealing with a student that is dealing with suicidal ideation or that is actively suicidal. And so I walk through all of those guidelines and steps that I take. You are definitely going to want to go and watch that at the end of this video, and so I'll put that down in the description below. The next one is, what would you do if one of your students tells you he or she is being abused? So this is different from if I am suspecting it. If I actually have a student that is telling me that somebody is abusing them, then for one, I would want to just figure out who that individual is, and so that they can disclose that information to me so that I'm able to get the necessary help that is needed and to protect them from that individual or individuals. I would file a DCS report. I will let the SRO know. I will also let my administrator know so that they can be in on trying to keep that student safe. Now, if it is that it's the parent or the guardian, whoever they're with, that is abusing them, then of course I am not going to send that student home. But that's also why we're going to have the SRO involved so that they can do the necessary protocols that they have to do on their end. And then we'll go from there with talking to my administrator and trying to get everything situated as far as what we're going to be doing with that student next. If it is that, let's just say it's not the guardians that's abusing them, maybe it is somebody else, but that student does not want to talk to the parent about it because maybe they feel like they're going to hurt that parent with telling them who it is, whatever the case may be, then I would still let them know that that is still a part of the process that we're going to have to take, but then I would be there with them and I would actually have that parent to come in. So the next question is, what would you do if a student says a teacher doesn't like him or her and requests a teacher change? So if there is a student that's coming to me and letting me know that, okay, they don't feel liked by their teacher, for one, I would really want to just dive into that situation. And I would want to find out what has happened to make them feel like that, getting more information. Then I would want to proceed and talk to the teacher about how this student is feeling. And also I would really just try to encourage having a meeting with the teacher, me, the student, and even if we have to get the guardian and the parent involved, and depending on the situation, getting the administrator involved, we would just come together and just talk about the situation at hand and what we can do to make this work. Now, Depending on the severity of the situation, then we will look into changing the teacher if that is even necessary. But if it's not, and it's something that we can easily just, fix through, having a meeting, then that will be the steps that I would take to handle that. The next one is, what would you do if a parent asks you to switch their child's teacher? If a parent came to me wanting to switch the child's teacher, once again, I would want to dive into that situation, figure out what is going on. Why is it that they want their child to have a different teacher? I will also encourage having a meeting with the teacher, the parent, even the administrator, so we can get them involved in on it and just try to figure out, okay, how can we make this work? And once again, depending on the severity of the situation, we will decide whether we need to move that child or not. So the next question is, what would you do if a student asks to be in the same lunch period as their friend? So the first thing that I would let that student know, letting them realize, is that their schedule is fixed that way for a reason, and it might be because they have a certain class that they have to take, or a certain teacher that they have, to where they have to have whatever lunch period that they are currently in. And so I would let them know, because it's not a necessity that it has to happen, they would have to stay in the lunch period that they're at. But I will also encourage them and let them know that, hey, you're going to be able to see your friend at other times of the school day, and so they're able to talk to their friends. So the next question is, what would you do if you suspect one of your students is abusing drugs or alcohol? So if it is that I'm suspecting that one of my students are abusing drugs or alcohol, for one, I would want to talk to my administrator and the SRO, and I would listen to them and the type of protocols that needs to be taken in order to handle this situation. So that is how I would answer that. The next question is, what would you do if one of your students admits to being sexually active? Now, for this question, you're going to have to look at your school district protocol as well as your school's protocol, and even the laws that they have within the state, because I know that if there's certain ages where you would have to take into account to know how to handle the situation. So I actually had to do some research on this question, and I actually found something online where if a student is the age of like 16 or 17 years old, it is not illegal for them to have voluntary sexual contact with a person, and it does not require for you to reach out to the Child Protective Services. However, when you read on, it says if the student is under 16 years old, then it's a felony, and then you need to reach out to Child Protective Services. So I found that, I think that is I can't say it, but Wisconsin State. I don't know. I'm just going to put it on the screen, but I believe that this is their state requirements. So for this question, I would highly recommend that you guys look at your state standards, school district, and your school standards and guidelines on how to handle that, so that whenever you go to your interview, you would know how to answer that appropriately. What would you do if one of your students were bisexual? For one, I do not want them to feel like they're being judged. I want them to know that they can come to me and talk to me about anything, and also reassuring them that everything that we talk about is going to be confidential. And so that's the main thing. And I would just want to provide a supportive space for them to where they can just feel like themselves and be themselves, and knowing that, hey, I am here for them. That is how I would address that. The next question is, what would you do if one of your students tells you that their parents is terminally ill? So if I am dealing with a student that has a parent that is terminally ill, I would want them to feel like they are in a safe space to talk about it. So if they have to cry, if they have to, just get out all their feelings, that they can do all of that with me in the office. And I will also just want to provide them and their families with the resources that they need to just help them through this time. If they need any counseling resources outside of, the school, then I will provide them that. If I have a small group that is going on that is addressing this issue or issues that is similar to this, then I would want to see if that student would like to be a part. Or I can also develop a small group that is addressing this situation, and I would ask that student if they would want to be a part, to be amongst other students that's going through something similar that they are going through, and so that they can also feel supported. And with this needs assessment, I would actually send it out to the teachers to see if they know anything, and I will also send it out to the students that they can fill out, and I would address those questions a certain way so that I can create this small group. So the next one is, what would you do if one of your students didn't get into their top college choice? So I would just want to create a safe space for them, and just give them the opportunity to just get out everything that they're feeling. And at the same time, I would just encourage them, and I would let them know that, you know, sometimes things happen for a reason, and that's okay. And it does not mean that they are less than because they did not get into their top college choice. And I would just encourage looking at other avenues, so other colleges, and just help them through that time. The next question, what would you do if one of your students wants to drop out of school, or one of your seniors is not going to graduate? So for one, if one of my students was going to drop out of school, I would first want to see, okay, what is going on? Why do you want to drop out of school? What is going on at home? You know, what is going on at school? Because it might be a deeper issue than them just saying, hey, I don't want to go to school no more. They could be going through some things at home, or maybe they're being bullied, and so that is what's causing them to want to leave school. So I would just dive into that. And I just want to encourage them to stay in school and to know that I am right there with them to help them through this process. And so that is one thing that I would do. What would you do if one of your seniors is not going to graduate? And so if one of my seniors was not going to graduate, for one, of course, I would pull them into my office, talk to them, and just get a feel of how they are feeling and what is going on in their mind. And then I will also just, you know, let them know that they are not by themselves. You know, there's others that are not graduating, and it's just important to just take this time to reflect and just saying, okay, what can I do to the next time so that this doesn't happen again. Then we'll also look at other avenues. Maybe they have to go to summer school in order to get all their credits to graduate. So I will help them navigate that process. The next question is, what would you do if one of your students continues to fail math or any subject each quarter? So if I have a student that's continually to fail, then I would want to figure out, okay, what is going on? What is going on at home? What is going on at school? Or is it just that they don't want to do the work? And then I would try to get them help. I would also talk to the teachers to see about, okay, what is going on with this student in class? And in talking to all of them, then I would try to see, okay, do we need to get some extra help for this student? Does this student need a tutor? You know, do we need to put something in place to help them to pass this class or classes? So that is something that I would look at. And then if it is that they need to go to summer school, then we'll also look at that option as well. So it looks like those are all the questions that I have for you guys. Hopefully these were able to give you an idea of how to answer these what would you do if interview questions. And I just thank you guys so much for your time. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a video. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.